The journey of 1,000 miles usually begins with 100 clumsy steps. We live in a world that unfortunately doesn't really recognize effort. It doesn't really recognize the amount of work that often has to go into having something perfect, something that is excellent, something that is quote unquote worthwhile. And unfortunately, if we don't take time to really get to know the stories behind the success stories that we follow and that we are aware of, then we'll think that people woke up one day and magically were able to do the things that they are now renowned for, the things that they are celebrated for. But in actual sense, if you really take time to dig into the journeys of a lot of the people that we celebrate, both in the world and even in the Christian faith, you will find that there is a lot of unrecognized, clumsy steps they had to take for them to get to where they are today, for them to be able to perfect the things that we now celebrate them, for them to for them to be able to do things with a certain level of ease and grace. I'm reminded of a video I watched some time back by a guy. Unfortunately, I don't remember his name, but he was talking about how he had taken time, he'd gotten an opportunity to study the late Kobe Bryant during one of his practice sessions, just a regular run in the mill practice sessions. And one of the things that really stood out to this guy when he was observing Kobe working out, and this was his practice before the main practice. And if you know even the littlest bit about basketball and the kind of player that Kobe Bryant he used to be a hard worker. And so this guy is observing one of the greatest basketballers to ever live, and he's wondering why this guy seems to be doing the most fundamental and basic steps that a player can do in the form of practice. Now, he obviously went on to do more complex things, but afterwards this guy got an opportunity to ask Kobe, why were you doing the basic stuff, like the elementary stuff that we teach kids when they're starting off, literally starting off in playing the game? And Kobe looked at him, and he had this very unique smile that was his trademark smile, and he told him, it's because I do this basics every day that I am the greatest player, that I am the kind of player that I am the kind of player that is celebrated to date. Now, obviously, I'm paraphrasing a lot with that story, but you get the point. There are basic steps to every journey that each one of us has to take, and none of us is exempt. And there are two ways to look at it. One, you can look at it as a place of encouragement, a point of encouragement, that if you're finding yourself in a season where you're starting off and it feels like you have nothing figured out, it feels like you barely know how to take that first step, then you're in good company, because every great person who has preceded you started off in a place like you are in. The only thing and the only difference between you and them is that they didn't stay there. They kept taking one step at a time until they got to where they are today. And the second way of looking at it is also a point of humility, because sometimes we want to start off at the top, and yet nobody starts off at the top. We all start from ground zero. We all have to start from ground zero and work our way up. And while there are quote unquote shortcuts and life hacks and all manner of things that are peddled in the day and age we live in, and yes, with the help of technology, with the help of wisdom, with the help of knowledge, and all manner of other things, there is ways in which you can make your journey that much more effective, undeniably so. But there is still the time and the place for effort. There is a point at which you cannot out hack process. You're not going to skip process. You're not going to microwave yourself past process. And I think the perfect example of it is something that we see in nature. If you've ever eaten fruit that has been ripened faster, than how it's supposed to ripen naturally. You'll realize that it doesn't taste the same as fruit that has been allowed to ripen and take the time it needs to actually get all the things that are supposed to be in it for it to be great for us to eat. And it's the same thing. You may find yourself getting results through shortcuts, but sooner rather than later, or later rather than sooner, you will realize that you don't have it as good as someone who actually took the time to master the basic steps of what they're doing and their field of gifting and talent and assignment. So, my charge to you, if you need the encouragement, take it. Take the first step and don't stop. Keep going. Find the people who have preceded you and see how they mastered their steps so that you're not taking as long as they did. You don't have to, but you do need to master your steps one way or the other. And on the flip side, let's be humble. Let's be humble enough to embrace the new beginnings. Let's be humble enough to embrace new starts. In fact, the Bible tells us not to despise humble beginnings. There's a reason for that. God could snap his fingers in an instant and have us be exactly where we need to be. But in his wisdom, he ordained for us to go through certain levels of process, certain levels of systematic growth. And there's a reason for that. That's what's on my mind today. What's on yours? Let me know.